there was this little dirt road, and I followed that for a couple of miles, and all of a sudden there was a farmhouse filled with people, and there's Val and his crew. And anyway, but he really had a serious side. He was a pretty bright guy, and I always appreciate that.
Yeah.
Very intelligent, very original, and also typically Val, like, yeah, just go to this place, but he'll edit the last like 500 yards out, so you walk around like an asshole looking for where we're supposed to be.
I went into a trailer park to try and find.
You know, it was a great cast, and there were so many people and that I loved. I mean, I loved you and I all
Michelle
the
Mayrick
people.
was so good.
Michelle,
Oh,
my God.
She was
I did
wonderful.
2 other movies before
Right,
this
yeah.
with, this
Valley
was my
Girl.
3rd movie with her, and I just felt she was such a movie star and so original, but she actually left the business shortly
Yeah,
after
she's
this.
married. I think she's living in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, now she's back in Canada.
Oh, she is back.
It's such like all the other ones, it's such a great character. Like that she's just on all the time and like, yeah. it
She
makes them-
became the nerd queen. We had a party over at the computer place, and every guy there was just all over her. She was getting letters and mail and all this stuff. It was great. But yeah, and I loved her incredibly. She just read once. I mean, she was actually the first person in who read for that, and it was perfect. And no, we had a few people after that, and nobody came close. So it was just it was obvious she was the girl. It was just so perfect for
And
the
that
dialogue.
Robert Prescott is just
And
so
Prescott.
perfect in that movie.
Yeah, and he was he in school with you?
Yeah.
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 Prescott, I saw, and I
This is Kent.
can't.
Yeah.
I really wanted him, and I think he'd moved out of town. He was in New York. I had to go.
Maine. He moved to Maine.
Maine.
Yeah.
He left. He was in Maine, and I said, Robert, you got to come and read for this movie, and because he's so perfect. He really is. This was a whole group of actors that came out of Joanne Barron Studios, which is a Meisner school, and I had studied there too. In fact, the guy in the bomber, you know, who has the, you know, with the thing and the mustache, black, sort of
Yeah.
part black guy.
Right.
He was my acting partner.
Right. I remember.
He was actually
and
not
Meg,
an
Meg
actor.
Lieberman was in the class with you as well.
Oh, that's right. And well, he was.
And
he
D.W.
was,
Brown.
Yeah, he was very. He was a studio executive. He just wanted to act.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a
And
quick.
Joanne Barron plays
She
Mitch's
plays Mitch's mother.
Oh yeah, you see her a lot. Like she works. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
really funny. Let's talk William Atherton.
Yeah.
I love William Atherton. I mean, he's so great in Die Hard and Ghostbusters, but I love this character.
Come on. You don't say what movie he's really amazing in besides this one. I mean,
Oh, the Sugarland Express.
Day of the Locust.
Yes,
Oh,
Day of the Locust.
God, when you say William Atherton, he's like synonymous with that.
But he was so traumatized by that movie that he left the business. He went back to
Really?
Broadway. Yeah, he had a very rough time. He was young and very beautiful, and he just had a rough time. So this was
Schlesinger's not an easy director.
no, and he was very young. So he came in and read. And here's the funny thing: he is from New Haven, Connecticut. We're the same age, and we went to the same dances. We
Really?
actually
Did you know each other?
No, I mean, I might have met him, but the point is, we went to all the same plays because we had the Yale Dramat, and we also had tryouts for New York plays. And so we went out to dinner, and we're like reviewing plays that we both saw 20 years earlier in New Haven, Connecticut, and it was really hilarious.
Crazy.
So we've been really good friends ever since.
What he does so wonderfully well is that villains and comedies are so tough because they can be very one-dimensional. Is that he has an affectation about him, and when he plays in this, everything he says is funny, and like he gets a laugh off it, but he's playing it totally straight. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Amazing.
Well, everybody in the cast really is so unique.
Yeah.
You make it your own.
Yeah.
And he too has a very different acting process. He's not Meisner trained or anything, but it goes through him and comes out completely original. He's just not like anybody else.
No.
Yeah. Martin, you were going to say something?
Right? Bill and Martha are two of the people from the picture that we kind of stuck with.
Yeah.
And I heard from Bill today, and he was literally very sorry he couldn't be here. He's actually working, and he would have liked to have come. But I remember a couple of things about him on the set, and one of them was we were resetting a laser scene, and you went down the hall to rehearse the scene where Bill starts yelling at Louis Giambalvo.
Yeah.
And it
was funny.
It was a rehearsal, and Bill has this voice, and all of a sudden, everybody stopped, and somebody said, I hope she didn't get hurt or something like that, because he just caused everybody to freeze in their steps.
No, that was funny. In fact, I got later Louis Giambalvo. I got to mow him down. He was a cripple in a wheelchair in CSI, so I worked with him again and got to kill him. And then, he's funny how you. And then I really didn't see. I saw you, and then I didn't see a lot of you. And then Napoleon Dynamite, you were so great in, and that was great. Sort of a whole transition, and another
I just like to wait 20 years.
When I saw that movie, I was so excited. I'm like, oh my God, Laszlo's in Napoleon Dynamite. Yeah. So amazing.
But it's also it's another anthem movie of a generation, which is really kind of.
Well, I was gonna say, John, because you've had a bunch of them. I mean, I love Running Scared too, and like the Taken movies, obviously. What's the one that you get the most? Like the people mentioned you the most?
Oh, probably this.
Yeah.
And Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the legacy of this movie, because I was saying this to you, Martha, is that I saw this in the theaters when it came out. I was a little kid, and it was 1985, and it was this crazy thing. There were 3 movies that summer that all dealt with like kids and science, and it was Real Genius, Weird Science, and My Science Project. And they all came out, you said, within 10 days of each other?
No, 2 days. Wednesday, one of them opened. Friday, the other 2 opened.
And so this
But we get the best reviews by far.
By far. We got the reviews.
It's got amazing reviews, which comedies don't always get. But it did kind of, like, it didn't do that great. Like,
Well, they all killed each other.
It kind of came and went. And like I was telling Martha, like, I loved it. And, I had fond memories of it. And I think, like, 10 years later, I saw, like, a VHS copy. And I'm like, oh, let me rewatch that and see if it holds up. And I'm like, this movie's so good. And then I've watched it a lot over the years, but it's clearly grown into this thing where, like, when you mention Real Genius, people's eyes light up and they get so excited. When did you guys starting to notice the change where it's like, okay, not many people saw it in theaters, but then slowly it kind of became this movie?
VHS, cable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, was it, like I worked with Chris Columbus, and he was telling me on Goonies that for him, Spielberg, Richard Donner, they all thought that movie flopped and no one liked it. And it wasn't until, like, Chris said he was doing Harry Potter that kids would come up to him and say, Goonies changed my life. And he's like, really? Because they were totally unaware of it, that this generation of kids. So, like was it something that you were aware of? And like, oh, man, I wish I'd done better.
In our case, we had an odd, this was sort of a little bit of a change in Hollywood. So, oddly enough, TriStar was a new studio, and HBO put a lot of money in this, and it was the first time HBO had done that. And they put money into it in order to get the cable rights. Well, what happened was, within about 2 years is what that break was after, or something like that, it was the biggest hit HBO had for 15 years. This continued. Wow. Always on HBO. They made, I don't know how they judge, but they told me moneymaker, but it's not money exactly how they measure it. But they had this movie, it was another #1 watched movies for 15 years, and was also a huge rental title. So I knew even within 3 years that it was.
Oh, wow, okay.
And also the schools would show it.
Really? Okay.
Caltech would show it, MIT would show it, and all this, and I was hoping more would happen, but then it just started spreading. And after I was working at the I was working with other people at the DGA fighting for artists' rights and stuff and going to Washington, and at first all the aides were Valley Girl, and then within like 2-3 years, and even now, Real Genius. It's like I get more people I'm Real Genius. And then I was really shocked when 10 years ago I went to Comic-Con and I just walked in and I had 5 people on me saying, "You're Martha Coolidge." you did really, you know, and then they, oh, you gotta talk to my brother, my friend, get the, you know, they put me on the phone. And that was really cool. So I went up to visit Blizzard, and all these engineers were all crazy about it. And then Martin, tell about your screening idea. You had a screening.
I still get residuals for a half day of featured extra, but not for my technical work, which is what I did most of the time.
No, but you said that you wanted to have a screening for your friends in science.
I did. When did I do that?
No, didn't
Are the
He
science
asked
friends
me,
here?
he said, I want to have a bunch of scientists come
Oh.
because a lot of scientists say this was very influential.
When we were talking tonight?
No. We did this when I was making The Prince and Me.
Oh,
And you invited 33 scientists to the screening. Don't you remember at Paramount?
yes, I do.
And they said they
I
became
did,
scientists
yeah,
because
yeah.
of this movie.
Well, there was in fact, she's right. There was a physics professor who drove down from Monterey, NPS, Naval Postgraduate School, just to be there and see it. I
There were Nobel Prize winners there.
I started getting feedback in sort of my business maybe about 15, 20 years ago for people who said they'd been influenced by the picture. I think two of them are here, Bill and Christy Schroeder, who are recent PhD chemists and were influenced by the picture. And it really had an influence. And I'll just say that I think the real genius on the picture was Martha and the way she treated those students and what came out with the
We had
kids.
fun.
who
Such a
were in
good job.
science.
Amazing job. You did such an amazing job. Really amazing. Didn't we do like the first live internet?
Oh, we
feed?
did. We did the first live internet online interview, and we were there.
That's
And they
right.
were typing answers and
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that was back in like 80 something, you know, like
Yes.
way early. It was the beginning.
86.
And I wish I had bought stock.
Yes.
Well, let's take a couple questions from
Yeah.
the audience. I know Matt Berry had a question that he told me to ask, but I'll let him ask it.
Well, it was basically about Vilmos Zsigmond, and one of the things that always impressed me about the movie was that differentiated it from the other comedies that came out was that it was 2:3:5 widescreen photographed by Vilmos Zsigmond. And I always remember that. I wonder if you could talk about.
Well, you know, again, I felt that we had to take being smart seriously. I believe that comedy is very serious business. As they say, dying is easy, comedy's hard. And so I believe that the stories have to be real, the drama has to be real, and you root it in reality. I mean, two kinds of styles. You can do ridiculous people in sort of really pompous settings, right?
Right.
Or you can do kind of very real rooted people who then have oddball reactions to very real things.
But the stakes have to be real.
But the stakes have to be real. So I wanted the picture to be beautiful. I said, I don't want to make it this kind of overlit, lab-looking weirdo, you know, white walls. And, you know, because really when you think about it, it's a romantic movie. It isn't a love story per se, but it's a romantic movie with romantic ideas about ideals and what young people want to live for. What is your life for? What are you dedicating your life to? And so I felt it should have a romantic look. And so then I said, I want to get a really good cameraman. And then, you know, Vilmos had had a little bit of a hard time working because he was priced out of the market. He'd won an Academy Award and he got paid
Couple
too
Academy
much.
Awards.
Couple, and he wasn't, you know, they all said, oh, he's too slow and he's an artist and forget it. So I interviewed him and he was so excited to be, he'd never shot a comedy. He wanted to do a comedy that he would cut his price in half. And then I gave him a point. I gave him one of my points, which that did it. I mean, that was setting a precedent for him. And so he came in, and working with Vilmos was so great because he's an artist. And he'd call me in the middle of the night, like Val would call you. He'd call me and go, Martha, I see arches. Arches. Sunlight. You know, I mean, he was just like that. And the widescreen, we debated, after all, it is a lot of interiors, and you wouldn't necessarily pick widescreen for that. But when I thought about comedy, I believe comedy needs to not be in close-ups. In fact, it's supposed to be in people together. You should see body language. And when you think of it, widescreen, we had 5 characters or so. I would be able to hold, and you could see all the behavior, and you would also, in the same time, see the environment and the lasers and the labs. And so even though it wasn't a landscape movie, it was a really perfect shape for the widescreen format, and it also enabled us to really control where your eye goes, and we could keep the light level low. And he also did another thing, he flashed it 10%. In those days, people were experimenting with how to get a different look out of the film, and so he flashed it 10%, which brought the contrast down. And the second day of shooting, they flashed it 90%. And we lost the whole day, which had been a really lucky day.
I was just going to talk about that day, because that was the first scene that I did.
That's right.
My first scene walking in.
Which scene? Oh, in the room.
Where I come in with all the prizes.
Yeah.
And so, and after that day, Vilmos came to me and he goes, I really think this is going to be a great movie. He really liked it. He really, really liked it. And that was like, I felt like it was a turning point. I mean, I think at first, because he had an analytical mind, and he would watch things in such a strange way, shapes and colors, but also the content. And then after we did that scene, the same scene that was also shot that day was the car in the room. But it was a big day.
And we did some of the tunnel.
Yeah, the tunnel. That's right. So
we did a day and a half of work in one day.
And it was a Friday, and I'll never forget. And as I was leaving, the second AD kind of slapped me on the back. He goes, "One hell of a day, dude." He goes, "Just hope they don't fuck the negative up." That's all he said to me.
Man, that guy did.
And I looked at him and I went, "Why would you even say that? Why would you even say that?" And I went home. I swear to God, I showed up on Monday, and he's looking at me with this face, and he
And
goes,
we're all going,
He goes, everything on Friday's lost. And I said, get out of here. I know exactly what you're doing. I know what you said. It's still ringing in my... He goes, dude, it's lost. And it was like, we had to shoot it all over again.
Yep.
Wow.
Extra day at work.
Well,
But there was magic. There was, I mean, I would love to have seen that scene originally.
Yeah.
It was magic.
Then we actually reshot Val.
His reaction.
Yeah,
Because he got so absorbed.
He really was, he was just off that second day, so then we had to reshoot him, so that was the third time for him.
Yeah. He came to me and said, I got too involved with what you were doing that I forgot about what I was doing. You need to reshoot the scene.
It was 70, 69, 68 days of shooting. It was long.
Yeah.
It was a lot of the year.
Were there a lot of cut scenes? I feel like there's some still of like Val in a chair with
things
balloons.
gone, yes. Yeah. And guess what? Gone.
Oh, they're gone?
I kept it all. I didn't even really know much about, we didn't have like director's cuts,
Right.
But I kept it all. And then later when those started coming out, I thought this is perfect. I had all that stuff. And yeah, it was gone.
What happened to it?
Who knows? These studios weren't being very careful with their, it happened on Los Yonkers too. They lost everything. And it's just peculiar.
It's crazy. You think they lose it back then. Think of what they do now. They just let it go into the ether. You know, it just disappears.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, right there.
Hi. I first saw this film in the...
Love your shirt.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah.
Surf Nicaragua for all those of you who can't.
But I first saw this film in the early 90s, and I connected with it and loved it for all the reasons that have been mentioned already, the witty humor, the comedy, but also the music is quite fantastic.
Yeah, I love the music.
And there's no soundtrack because, I mean, I went out looking for it in all these record stores afterwards, But I found like Chaz Jankel and Tears for Fears, and of course that music had already been passé by the time I was watching the film. But I thought it was fantastic. One thing I noticed in the film is that there's two fairly long, almost interludes of music that with the I'm Falling song and the one that even plays over some dialogue in a way that you wouldn't really see today. I mean, it's almost the whole song plays for two songs, and I thought that was really fascinating. So I was wondering what the decision was there. It's almost like a MTV music video interlude in the middle of in a couple of spaces in there. And so I was wondering what the thought process was.
Well, I did this a little bit in Valley Girl. Valley Girl became a game changer as far as music. And I handpicked all that music with the help of Michael Papali and who had great ears. And because that movie had a 6-month turnaround from the time before I shot it till it was released, the music was shockingly fresh. I mean, it was, in this one, it was a huge movie, and it took over a year. And then what happened is I wanted Tears for Fears. Then it got too expensive, and we couldn't have it. And then by the time we finished the movie, it was already sliding down the charts. I could get it for cheap. So we got it because it was just too perfect a song. But the whole use of music, I had a whole feeling about how you can use a song, not just to be, I don't know, that it could drive forward a story, and it does that in Valley Girl, and there are places like that, and modern English song is like that in Valley Girl. But here, I didn't want to just use it the same way. I liked the idea of the popness and the beat and the coolness and kind of masculinity in a way. A lot of the songs that went with the nerd, kind of counter punches that nerd stuff. That this is really hip, and that to me, what a great way to think of yourself working on laser projects, to beat, what I mean is like, and the parties are pretty silly, but yeah, so it's, I think that all of us, probably almost everybody in this room probably grew up listening to music when we worked. I mean, it's a big change from the generations prior where, they had big band and it was sexy, but you couldn't as easily listen to music all day long.
Thank you for asking that. I love the soundtrack, and I love both
It's a
those.
shame, the Valley Girl soundtrack came out 15 years after the movie.
Really?
Yeah, they couldn't get the rights. So it just, the studios just didn't see a benefit in having a soundtrack album, and this one was never even talked about.
Wow. Yeah.
You mentioned the rats earlier. I've always been told that it's tough working with animals. What was it like shooting the dog scenes? And at the very end of the film, he shows up right by the house with all the popcorn. Did he have a reaction?
It's his
to
only
that?
friend.
Oh yeah, where did the dog come from? I mean, he got a
He's a
laugh every time.
professional dog. I mean,
But I mean, the idea of, yes, I know you cast a dog. I mean, the idea of that gag, like, there's just a dog in his
it
lawn
was
that-
me. That's my
Yeah,
little.
yeah.
I mean, I have to tell you that I have had great luck with animals. I used actually way more animals in my recent movie than I've ever used before, because I've learned to just trust them. They can do one thing. That's it, one thing at a time. And that dog was trained to go in, hang around a little bit, and then run away. I mean, and by the way, now I know, because I went to Poland and I worked with Great Danes, and they are really stupid. Well, the one we had, didn't know to sit. It just, they're really dumb. But, I like the way they run. They're kind of like this. They're kind of like floppy and funny, and plus you'd see it in a wide shot. So, that's why I picked it. But I love that he hated popcorn, he hated dogs. I mean, it's just, just another thing.
All right, we'll take two more questions. Yeah.
Well, John, first of all, I want to say that, Val or someone else may be the heart of the movie, but I really think your character was the soul of the movie, and was the conscience of the movie. And so thank you so much. And
I appreciate it.
I was wondering, do you guys actually look at this, and I mean, it sounds political, but I guess because it is that, we have a drone program now that's
Oh,
actually
yes.
doing exactly what this movie is satirizing. And yet, when this movie came out, I would imagine, and when we have the congressman there, it's like, oh God, we can't do that. But now we actually accept this.
It's funny,
And
one of the
so
things,
timeliness.
it's a really good point, because one of the things that actually drew me to the character was because the film is an anti-war film. I mean, it's an anti-military film. It's kind of a little bit of a throwback to the 60s anti-disestablishmentarianism, or whatever you want to call it. And for me, the heart of Laszlo was exactly that.
That's what broke him.
That's what broke him, and that's why he has a chance. What saves him is the opportunity to come and say, you guys are missing the point, and don't make the same mistake I made, which has to be played for the truth of what it is, because, he is just doing what he's doing until that moment that he realizes what's happening, till Val says, it's a bromide field in an argon matrix. I don't know. Anyway, so, but that I get it close.
Right.
Anyway, but for me, that was why I felt, and so I appreciate you saying that. But it's written in the story. I felt, and I think I understood it. Just a question of when you read a script, what if the through line speaks to you when you're reading a character? When you read something, if it you really get the essence and the theme of what's happening, and it's always a great help. This was not hard for me to play, because I was so invested in it, right away. I didn't have to go home and work this character out. I didn't sweat it. This one was just I knew it the minute I read it. It's just sometimes that's the way it is. Luckily, sometimes you got to work much harder.
It's true. And it isn't that I was trying to be, the whole point of the movie is to entertain. But what an opportunity, if you're going to spend millions of dollars on a movie, wouldn't you want it to say something? I mean, and to say something about, and it isn't that you don't want applied science. And the whole opening montage came out of brainstorming with Tommy Newman, and this was one of his very early scores, but brainstorming about how we could say something about the movie. And if you're going to invent something, you're going to invent it. People will use it for bad or good. I mean, they're going to use it. If it's a breakthrough invention, I'm sure the gun was maybe not necessarily meant to, maybe it wasn't invented for war, I don't know. Maybe it was invented for shooting your meal. But the point is, it can be used for both, and shooting people too. So the point is that it's what we do with things. But when you take students, and the only money that's coming into science programs, and it's big money compared to other departments, and that money is coming mostly from military, or let's put it another way, drug companies. Same thing, same idea, and they don't know it.
Right.
That is where it starts to become a disillusionment for people when they might not have chosen to do it had they known that they were contributing to something they may not believe in.
Yeah, and you realize Val Kilmer's doing this, making this incredible invention to get his degree. I mean, the amount of money
That's where the
that would
lines
be
get
worth,
blurred,
and he's just getting his degree.
And not thinking
That's all
about
I
it.
need.
Yeah,
And it's
not
this
thinking about it.
$1 invention.
And I don't think most people do think about that. I mean, most young people, they're just doing their assignment, and and this guy, and in fact, I mean, a lot of money going into science programs at the time was coming from sources that would not, you're only on a need-to-know basis. You don't need to know.
Well, I think that's what's so great about it is that they're kids going towards this goal, and this is the goal, and they want to get to the goal, and then they don't think about it. And it's probably, people are creating the atom bomb and other stuff. It's such a great message and so smart, because I think the audience is with the movie and with these guys, and you're not thinking about it either until Laszlo brings it up. And so, anyway, let's take one last question because it's getting late and we should let these guys go. Yeah?
So, as a scientist, I thought that your film did a really good job of capturing some of the ego that exists in academia and
Aha!
both on the level of professors and in students. And so, one question was there a specific inspiration for the character of Jerry Hathaway? And a question to Martin, how many different Jerry Hathaways have you met?
Don't, you can't call me Jerry line derived from an experience I'd had.
I think that there are bosses like this all over. I mean, certainly in movies, we know there's people like this.
Probably a Der Wiener Schnitzel too. I mean, you know, it can be anywhere.
But I think you're right. There's a lot of ego. But you know, if you really think about it that way, the competition and the talk around the table. See, okay, this is where there is a difference between men and women directors. To me, there is so much male behavior, social behavior, in the movie that I like men, and I think they're really funny, and you know, and they're men, and you go, men. You know, why can't they just take their ego out of this and, you know, do what's right or whatever? Meaning, you know, do they really have to put their name on the building? I mean, really? So, obviously I hit a spot. Okay. So, but so to me, all of those jokes, the penis jokes and there, it all has, it's about something to me. It's about a male, you know, militaristic, competitive culture that women can buy into it, but I'm not sure that it's where women compete or how they go about killing each other and stabbing each other in the back. I mean, I think that there's something about the secrecy and the control, and yes, the ego in this guy. I mean, he's so recognizable, like a politician would have to pretend to be humble, except for maybe Trump. He's changing the rules, but you know, and then you have the you know, film directors we know and actors we know, but yeah, scientists too, particularly because when I met with these people from the Defense Department, they had this language that I was very versed in at the time. You know, where they. What happened?
Somebody pass out?
Oh,
Really?
Are you sure?
yeah,
Are you a registered nurse? Is it hot? Maybe.
One,
Well, anyway.
why don't you finish your point, Martha, and we'll wrap up.
I'll just finish my point that